When it comes to Kirby, you pretty much know what you're gonna get, but from a completionist's perspective, some titles are more involved than others. Sometimes they're straightforward, linear adventures, easy to finish and complete, and sometimes DLC has been added to an otherwise bare-bones game that turns the entire completion process into an unholy nightmare. Yes, I was originally planning to complete Kirby Star Allies, but after completing most of that game and seeing just how many playthroughs are required for true completion via its DLC, I pivoted to a different Kirby game on a different system, Kirby Triple Deluxe on the 3DS. And hey, look at that, this video is coming out basically around its 10th anniversary of release. Thank you, universe. I'll get around to Star Allies someday, but for now, let's enjoy Kirby Triple Deluxe.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another brand new episode of The Completionist, where we don't just beat the games, we complete them. Kirby Triple Deluxe came out on the 3DS almost 10 years ago, and it's crazy to think about considering that the 3DS is now long gone. So here we are today celebrating the 10th anniversary of Kirby Triple Deluxe. Let's do this.
Kirby's Triple Deluxe released in 2014. It was the 10th traditional Kirby platformer and the first Kirby title ever released on the Nintendo 3DS. The developers wanted to make use of 3 unique features that the hardware had to offer: gyro controls, Street Pass, and of course, those 3D visuals. This all points to how the game got its name, but it truly feels like a deluxe experience all the way through. And these days, Kirby fans are eating well. The future of the series looks bright after Kirby in the Forgotten Land reimagined what a Kirby game could look like and feel like. But that game couldn't have existed without the backbone of HAL Laboratories and Nintendo's special relationship, which was especially important during the making of Triple Deluxe. See, Kirby, even way back in 2014, had been a well-established series. 10 mainline games is a lot, especially for a 2D platformer that hadn't changed all that much from title to title. Kirby games follow a certain formula, but the magic of any given title is in how HAL Laboratories chooses to shake things up. Game director Shinya Kumizaki said during development that it's essential for us to take the rules we've created and sometimes throw them out the window and start over and think of new things. And Nintendo helps us when we have to do that and adds new challenges for us to face and overcome. And in that way, the series continues to grow. So yes, on the surface, Triple Deluxe seems similar to Kirby games that came before it. 6 main worlds broken up into 42 stages total. Though the game makes impressive use of the 3DS's impressive technology, it's still mechanically a 2D or 2.5D platformer. Kirby copies enemy abilities, finding collectibles, and beats bosses on his way to battling whatever intergalactic horror of the week has shown up to terrorize Dreamland or Planet Popstar or whatever environment we're in. In this game, there are 2 main collectibles to find: Sunstones and Keychains. There are 100 Sunstones to find in story mode. Some stages have just 1 to find, but others have 3 to 4. The player must collect a certain amount of Sunstones per level before you can fight that level's boss, so the game subtly pushes players to grow excited about the completion process. Besides Sunstones, there are Keychains to collect as well. There are 256 total. There are 2 types: normal keychains and rare keychains. Normal keychains are common, found all over the place pretty easily. You can also use Street Pass coins to unlock some of them from a menu or find them in the unlockable extra modes. Now the tricky thing here is that you can collect duplicates of normal keychains. The 36 rare keychains are a bit more hidden. Rare keychains only appear in story mode. This game also sticks with the established Kirby tradition of having mini games and unlockable extra modes after you conquer the main story. Triple Deluxe places a lot of focus on everyone's favorite frenemy, King Dedede, both in the main plot of story mode and elsewhere. Once you beat the final boss of story mode and roll credits, you'll unlock the Dedede Tour, a short King Dedede starring campaign with some unique gameplay and bosses. He also has his own sub-game called Dedede's Drum Rush, which has 4 stages of difficulty to master. Triple Deluxe also gave us Kirby Fighters, a multiplayer platform fighter similar to Smash Bros. This little sub-game eventually released as a standalone title called Kirby Fighters Deluxe. You gotta love when developers add a multiplayer mode just to flex on people and try something new. Even though it may seem very similar in structure to previous Kirby titles, Triple Deluxe still feels innovative with its mechanics and art direction, which is a huge feat considering the sheer amount of Kirby content that's out there. Like Kirby's appetite, the well of new Kirby design ideas is seemingly bottomless. Once you start the game, your save file shows a completion percentage, and the only way to reach 100% is to find all 100 sunstones, all 256 keychains, and to conquer all the unlockable extra modes as well. Like any given Kirby game, completion is always slightly more involved than it seems at first glance. But the road to completion in Triple Deluxe is a smoothly paved one for the most part. The game may not reach the highest heights of the best of Kirby games, but it's thoroughly enjoyable through and through, and makes great use of the unique features that was once the Nintendo 3DS. Kirby Triple Deluxe set itself apart from its predecessors and still stand out as a game worth playing despite several great follow-ups? The answer is a blend of smart design decisions that draw from Kirby's past and play on its present. And despite some gimmicky elements where the developers really wanted to showcase what the 3DS could do, this game feels timeless and should be experienced by anyone even remotely interested in the series. Some things change and some things remain the same, but know that in a Kirby game that the plot will always start out semi-innocent and predictable and always end up somewhere existentially horrifying. Triple Deluxe begins with what seems like a random series of events as King Dedede is kidnapped by a flying being with way too many arms. Kirby gives chase, running up a beanstalk to save Dedede. It feels like any villain in a long-running series eventually comes back around to being seen as a friend, and Dedede is no exception. Weirdly, the plot doesn't become clear until the very last possible moment. The cutscenes in Triple Deluxe look gorgeous, but you don't really get any kind of exposition until a couple of monologues from the very final boss of the game. That said, I'm not really looking to Kirby games for great stories. I'm here to have a chill time and to be delighted. This game delivers on that front and even surprised me many times. After completing 9 other Kirby games on this channel, you'd think I've seen it all. But Triple Deluxe does some cool, surprising things, especially after the first 2 stages. I will admit that the game starts to slow a little. Kirby games are generally criticized for being way too easy, sometimes even boring, and mostly all the same. But I'm glad to say that Triple Deluxe overcomes those stereotypes in its story mode. Later levels are genuinely innovative and even, stay with me here, I'm serious, offer a challenge at times, especially if you're going full completionist. Finding every sunstone seemed like it would be a cakewalk, especially after 100%ing clearing the first world in about 45 minutes. But things get more interesting and complicated very quickly. The way this game uses the technology of the 3DS is cool. It feels fresh for a side-scrolling game even today. That innovation is balanced by some repetitive elements like fighting the same bosses multiple times. But when Triple Deluxe shows off its original ideas, it really shines. The first thing that any Kirby fan will notice are the new copy abilities. At this point, it might feel like everything that can be copied will be copied and has been copied by Kirby. And yet, Triple Deluxe has some new forms for Kirby to transform into: Archer, Beetle, Bell, and for some reason, a circus. These 4 abilities showed up for the first time in this game, and they're instantly memorable. I've always wanted to see Kirby in a little Robin Hood hat. He wears it well. The Bell is great too and has weirdly great feeling combos that you can pull off. Combat in Kirby games has never really required the player to pay that much attention, considering that most enemies die in 1 or 2 hits no matter what you hit them with. But it feels rewarding in this game to pull off a ding finale and wipe the screen of enemies in your little Bell hat. Many other copy abilities from Kirby games past return here too, and they're all beautifully animated and give Kirby a great outfit. Certain ones are always super effective, like the hammer or the ninja, but I tried to use every single ability multiple times over the course of completing the game. Partly because it remains uniquely fun to experiment with different ability types, and partly because to find every rare keychain and sunstone, you have to master certain skills, and some abilities are very useful to solve certain puzzles. The bonus mode, Kirby Fighters, also serves as a fantastic training ground. This sub-game forces you to battle other Kirbys with different copy abilities, so if you spend any time in Fighters, you'll quickly learn the strength and weaknesses of every ability. Level and puzzle designs are pretty perfectly tuned. Yes, it starts off a little easy, but that's part of the design philosophy of Kirby games and always has been. The director explains, paying attention to ease of play in the beginning and then the sudden increase in tension in the later half of the game is a philosophy we have kept in mind when creating all of the Kirby titles. The designers wanted players to grow with the game, gradually empowering players until they can not only beat the game and the genuinely difficult final few bosses, but they reach 100% completion because they feel excited to do so. That is one of the coolest things ever to hear about completing a game. I think it's great that Kirby has always been the platformer for players of any skill level. Even if you're totally new to the games, you'll find something to love here. And if you're well versed in Kirbydom, there is still stuff that will surprise you. This game makes an effort to take advantage of the platform it released on, but does so without alienating players. Now, the 3DS has some underrated features that are put on full display here. Art styles that take advantage of what a 2D platformer can look like. Kirby can seamlessly move from the foreground to the background by jumping onto special warp stars. And if you weren't a fan of the 3DS features of the Nintendo 3DS, or only play on a 2DS, these choices still work well and look great. Even the gyro controls are well implemented. This game even uses Street Pass in some cool ways too, like Bandana Waddle Dee throwing the player better items. Hardware gimmicks are usually just that, but when they're as well done as they are here, I'm not mad at it. One of the big gameplay features in Triple Deluxe is the ability for Kirby to go Hypernova by eating a miracle fruit. You ever eat a piece of fruit off a tree that's so good your entire body turns into a shimmering rainbow and your body turns into a never-ending black hole? Oh no, just Kirby? Well, that happens in this game. Every few levels, you'll be given the Hypernova for a few sections, giving Kirby the ability to inhale things he couldn't have dreamed of inhaling before. These sections are where I found myself laughing out loud. Watching Kirby inhale not just an enemy or two, but entire sections of the level is hilarious. HAL Laboratories is deliberately playing with player expectations in a really fun way. Kirby can derail a train, inhale an eel, even suck up an entire end-level boss, including their health bar, in Hypernova mode. It's just a really fun mechanic that is delightful to see in action. The catchphrase of Kirby has always been, he can inhale anything. But in this game, it really feels like he can, at the very least, in certain sections, inhale everything. It's over the top in the best way. I was surprised to see how much the music moved me in Triple Deluxe. Kirby games have always low-key had incredible soundtracks, so it shouldn't have shocked me how good the score is. It absolutely rocks. Familiar Kirby tracks and motifs are here, and the new stuff is great too. The boss theme for Flowery Woods is bass heavy and amazing, and the final boss against Queen Sectonia fully rocks. Despite its compact status as a handheld adventure, Kirby Triple Deluxe stays engaging and exciting throughout as you complete story mode. It's once you look outside story mode that the true completion criteria reveals themselves, and that will either make you or break you. In true Nintendo fashion, this game gives you a ton to do in the name of completion. The more you play, the more you unlock, and the more you fully complete those unlocks, the more rewards you get. Even though some of them are pretty purely cosmetic, the fact that Triple Deluxe acknowledges that you did them is always really cool. Getting 100% completion on your file can be a difficult task, and unfortunately how long it takes depends on luck and your own skill. But first, the good. Beating story mode and collecting all 100 sunstones did not take me that long. I was able to knock that out in probably about 3 to 4 hours. Your mileage may vary there. I've completed many Kirby games over the years, but if you've got a baseline of what to expect, this part of the completion journey won't push you that hard. Finding all 100 sunstones means you beat all the bonus stages in story mode, and that also unlocks a special rare keychain, Queen Sectonia. Once you beat the game, you'll unlock the Dedede tour mode starring King Dedede in a side adventure. Now, I love alternate play modes, especially when they feature a new player character. Dedede has his signature giant hammer, allowing him to smash his way through everything. They condense basically the entire game into 6 stages, but it's kind of a stringing together of the entire game within those 6 stages. It's still fun and somewhat challenging to complete. The campaign is much shorter than Kirby's because there are no Hypernova sections, and you can find portals to skip entire sections altogether. All the bosses are replaced with DX versions, who are stronger and have different attacks than their normal counterparts. And the final boss is a Dark Meta Knight. This campaign only took me about 2 hours to complete. Once you finish the Dedede tour mode, you gain access to the sound test called the Jukebox on the main menu. Beating the main story mode also unlocks the Arena Boss Rush Gauntlet, a staple in modern Kirby games. But naturally, the Arena is only the precursor to the True Arena mode. Once you clear the Arena and the Dedede tour mode, the True Arena is unlocked and the real endurance test begins. These boss rushes show that even Kirby games can throw a curveball to players. Personally speaking, I relied on the Leaf ability to clobber my way through its combination of strong attacks and literal pure invincibility that let me turtle up and survive. A little patience goes a long way, and you might need to memorize a few patterns to minimize damage. These boss rushes are standard Kirby fare at this point, no stranger to anyone who has completed a Kirby title before, so I was not surprised at their inclusion. Both arenas are tough but enjoyable, and each arena took me anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes to master. The sub-games, Kirby Fighters and Dedede's Drum Dash, are a whole other story. Actually, Kirby Fighters is fine. Like I said, I thought of it like an extended tutorial for all the copy abilities that are available in that mode. Even on the hardest of the 4 difficulties, you do get unlimited continues, so there isn't really any barrier to completing this mode with every copy ability and fighting your shadow self at the very end. You can blow through all the rounds in less than 10 minutes, easy. And fully completing Kirby Fighters took about an hour tops. Now this is where the difficulty comes into play, folks. It was Dedede's drum dash that basically wrecked me. So when I completed Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, I said that it made my thumbs bleed. Well, drum dash made my hands cramp like crazy, but this sub-game is brutal. You control a jumping Dedede bouncing on drums and collecting coins, making your way from left to right. Every time you jump, you can clap in the air on the beat, which you'll need for something called the backbeat. You will need to keep doing this mid-clap at every opportunity to get the highest score possible. Also, Dedede can jump at different heights depending on when you press A when he lands on the drum. The more you do this, the higher the jump is. Seems pretty basic at first, but in a running theme for Kirby games, it's not basic for us completionists. There are 4 difficulty levels to overcome. Now, to get percentage points for your file, you only have to clear these difficulty modes. But as a completionist, I have to do what I have to do to get the platinum high score for each level. And this is where the pain lies. Because to get a platinum score, you need to keep 4 bonus objectives in mind. 1, don't take any damage. 2, collect every single coin on every stage. 3, finish each level with at least 30 seconds left on the clock. And 4, and the most difficult, keep perfect rhythm by hitting the backbeat correctly every single time you jump. Now, the first 3 difficulty stages took me less than an hour to master, but the final stage, called Distant Traveler, took me probably 5 hours of non-stop trying. If I missed even one cue, I had to start over. And let's just say I had to start over a lot. It's one of those things that you have to see it to believe it, because you have to be so in the zone that it feels unreal. But hey, if you want to dissociate yourself from reality like I did and master this mode, you can get that platinum score no problem. But the most time-consuming thing in Triple Deluxe is gathering all the keychains. It's actually easier to find all the rare keychains before acquiring all the normal ones. Because even though you can stumble upon normal keychains all over the place, you can still get repeats, doubles, triples, whatever. Whereas the rare keychains, you know there's exactly 1 per stage that isn't in a boss fight stage. If you want to find all 220 normal keychains, you're going to have to grind. It's not that difficult, it just takes time. Most stages have about 4 keychains to gather, so if you pick a stage like level 1, 2 like I did, you can beat the whole stage in about 2 to 4 minutes. But there's still chances to receive repeat keychains, and that's a bummer in itself. The keychains themselves are great. Each one is an awesome reference to Kirby games past. If these existed in real life, I'd probably want to collect every single one of them. Opening up the keychain section on the menu and scrolling through the entire collection is a wonderful reminder of how far Kirby and friends have come over the last several years. I've always appreciated that Kirby games love to celebrate themselves, their history, and the completion process. And it's so cool to see that celebration continue here. Each aspect of completion also gives the player a tiny bonus reward for the main start screen. The giant beanstalk that Kirby climbs, known as the Dreamstalk, appears on the start screen and changes subtly depending on how close you are to full completion. Completing story mode adds the blooming flowers to the Dreamstalk, and once you beat Dedede's campaign, he'll appear flying around in the background. And once you finally hit 100% completion on your file, Kirby's appearance changes to Hypernova form. The final true completion reward for completing this game is that when you are done, you are given a cutscene of King Dedede and Kirby dancing in tandem together, along with the entire cast of characters from Kirby's history watching in the audience. It's a fun reminder that Kirby games pat you on the head and thank you when you complete them, which I wish more games did. It may not seem like much, but I appreciate that Kirby Triple Deluxe acknowledges when the player completes it. Little visual touches go a long way towards making it feel like the developers were thinking of how the player would feel when they go that extra little mile. In the end, Kirby Triple Deluxe surprised me. I went into the completion process thinking it would be rote or repetitive, but thankfully the story mode was fun the entire time, and the main campaign never overstayed its welcome. I wish I could say the sub-games were a little less frustrating, and grinding for keychains definitely dampened my enthusiasm. If you're gonna do this, I recommend not trying to do this in a single weekend. Overall, I was able to 100% complete this game in about 13 hours or so. Throughout the experience, I was impressed and entertained, even if I was occasionally underwhelmed at some of the side content, or overwhelmed depending on who you ask. But hey, any game that ends with the player character basically absorbing a Kamehameha blast to defeat the final boss is always a winner in my book.
So what are your thoughts on Kirby Triple Deluxe? Let us know in the comments down below. I've been Gerard the Completionist, and with that in mind, I give this game my Completionist rating of complete it. See you around. Bye.